I just got a new package and I realized that the Nintendo Switch is the new PSP now. This is Ys Memoires, the Oath in Falghana, which is a port of the PSP version of Ys, the Oath in Falghana, which I played like 10 years ago, I think, and I really like it and I can't wait to get back into it and give it another go. Could I have played it on my PSP? Yes. Do I want to play it on my PSP? Yes. Do I also want to play it on my Switch? Yes. So here we are. We got Oath in Falghana. And when it comes to Ys, I think this is one of the big titles, the big bangers of the series. Probably the best title in the series, alongside Dawn of Ys and probably Ys Origin, I would say, and including Ys 1 as well, which is also on the PSP. I'm very excited. Maybe we can get Ys 1 and 2 Chronicles also on the Switch. That would be pretty nifty if you ask me. By the way, this one has a lot of the PSP features that the PC version does not. The PC version that you have on Steam is actually a modernized version of the original PC version of the game. It originated on PC, then it got ported to the PSP with extra features, then it got brought over to the West on the PC without the extra features. I think they got patched in later on, but this is a port of the PSP version, which is overall an improvement over the original PC version. I looked at this and I also looked at the stack of games I have been buying over the last month or two, and I realized slowly the PSP is being replaced by the Switch now. We have so many ports of different games. For example, over here, a game I have of a PSP game is Akiba's Trip. Oh no, this is the second one. Where's the first one? Here, this is the PSP game, Akiba's Trip. Original PSP release, also on the Switch right now. And this stack of games that I have here also originated on the PSP or had their best releases so far on the PSP. The first one, I finally, when it got re-released, got the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster Collection, and up till this point, the PSP had the ultimate versions of 1, 2, and 4. I've only played Final Fantasy 4 so far on the Game Boy Advance, and right now I'm making my way through the series. I played Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3, and now I want to give Final Fantasy 4 a chance, because quite honestly, I wasn't a gigantic fan of it back then. I didn't think it was worth the hype, because it got hyped up as one of the best RPGs, the best Final Fantasies back in the day, when I played it around 2010 or 11. And I wasn't the biggest fan, but I want to check it out. When it comes to the first 3 games, which I've played at the moment, I really liked the first 2 games, Final Fantasy 1 and 2. I think the leveling system in Final Fantasy 2, which is considered the black sheep because of that feature, I think really benefited the entire game. Really every battle counted, and I got really excited when my healer got knocked down to a couple of HP, because then they had the chance to actually increase their HP. Unlike the first Final Fantasy or also Final Fantasy 3, where you have your normal stat progression throughout the levels, and it didn't really feel like every battle mattered. Still, Final Fantasy 3, even though it's a lot more polished and I didn't like it as much, it's still a fantastic game. The story wasn't too great. Final Fantasy 2 really shines for this one. But I want to make my way through this. I have not played Final Fantasy 5 or 6, and I'm very excited to give Final Fantasy 5 a chance with the whole job system and so on. That's always the one that intrigued me the most. So, physical release, it's all on card, very excited. On the Switch, Final Fantasy, the Pixel Remaster. Highly recommended, even for the price, it's pretty pricey. Here we have Star Ocean, the second story R. Also a game that had the best version so far on the PSP. We have it right here. Star Ocean Second Revolution on the PSP, which is where I played this game first. It was first a PlayStation 1 game, then it got an enhanced port, almost kind of remake for the PSP, and now it got a full-on, not HD 2D, they used their own engine, but a new version for the Switch and PS5, I think. I've not played it yet. I played Star Ocean 2 on the PSP, and honestly, again, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I thought the leveling system, maybe I didn't quite understand it. The Star Ocean games are pretty complex and maybe a bit too much for their own benefit. You can level up to like 255 instead of just 100 and so on. And I really didn't understand the leveling progression system in the game too much. I got to the very last battle in the game and I just couldn't beat it, and I didn't want to grind, and grinding doesn't really help either. I was a gigantic fan of Star Ocean The First Departure on the PSP, which is a full-on remake of the original Star Ocean. This one got ported to the Switch as well as Star Ocean First Departure R. But I don't think that one ever got a physical release. Maybe in Japan, maybe I have to look into it. But I was a big fan of the first one. The second one wasn't really my cup of tea, but I'm willing to give it another chance on the Nintendo Switch. Especially after finishing Star Ocean 3 on the PS2 last year. And I was a really big fan of that. I really liked it. And the whole like alchemy crafting system, even though I'm not a big fan of that in games in general, that really got me into a bit of grinding, and it was a lot of fun. Another two games actually, that originated on the PSP. You have to understand, I'm European, I live in Germany. I often look at German Amazon, like what games are coming out. However, you have to look outside of the box sometimes. You look at other European countries, because sometimes countries like France or Italy or Spain get physical releases that other countries like Germany do not. And this is one of those cases. Class of Heroes 1 and 2 on the PSP. Old school wizardry like dungeon crawlers. If you like Etrian Odyssey, you have to check this out. It's a lot of fun. It's very hard to get into. Like the first few hours you're going to not make a lot of progress because it's a lot of work. You go into the dungeon, you fight one or two battles, and then your party is so hurt that you have to get back out, heal back up, get back in. It's a bit of a hard grind in the beginning, but it's so rewarding once you get over this. I'm currently around 10 hours into the first Class of Heroes, and I'm finally starting to understand the game. Like how the alchemy works, how the dungeon progression works, how the map system works. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work to get into it, but it's super rewarding. I've heard Class of Heroes 2, this one is actually Class of Heroes 2G, which is the PS3 port of the PSP game with enhanced graphics and enhanced effects. That it's even better. And then they got another sequel, Class of Heroes 3 on the PS3, which never made its way to the West, but now finally got announced for a Western release. So Class of Heroes 2G is on the list as well. I'm really enjoying this. One tip I can give you, if you want to get into this game, turn down the volume. The music in at least Class of Heroes 1 is, I think, one of the worst soundtracks I've ever heard in an RPG. And the sound effects, the mixing, the ambient sound effects, it's all wrong. It's like just turn down the volume, listen to podcasts, put on some other music. However, the gameplay, the class systems, the leveling, the item grinding, you collect items in the dungeons, but you don't see what it is. You have to identify it all to then see if you need it or not, if you want to sell it, if you want to use it for crafting. If you like dungeon crawling RPGs like this is the game for you. It's pretty good. and there's no story, basically only quests that tell you go to dungeon, beat enemy, come back. No big quests, but I really enjoy it. If you want a mindless game where you, well, not really mindless, you have to think a lot, like it's not very hand-holdy, but when you're in the dungeon, like you walk around, you activate your inner OCD trying to fill in the map, and this is the game for you. So, the PSP, or the Nintendo Switch, the new PSP, my question to you, what other PSP ports do you know about on the Switch and what do you recommend? I already showed you Akiba's Trip, and let me see, do I have any other PSP games already in my collection? At least I can't think of any at the moment, but I think these, for some reason I got them all at once, and I thought it's slowly replacing my PSP as my handheld of choice for JRPGs.